Hi, I'm Tom Stapledon, and I've got another talk here on behalf of the Friends of Williamson's Tunnels. Um, this one is a slideshow that's intended to give you an idea of the process by which the Friends of Williamson's Tunnels emptied out the Paddington cellars over a period of about, well, almost exactly 4 years between November 2012 and November 2016. This particular episode that I'm going to show here comes from a set of slides or a set of photographs taken in August 2015 when we were right in the thick of it. We were well on our way down to the 4th level, but we were certainly nowhere near completing the job. And it's just, we're following the trail of a Paddington bucket, basically from top to bottom and back up again, to show what the process was like that we all went through over those 4 years in emptying out the cellar system. And here we are on the surface at Paddington. And we used nothing but these 10-litre plastic paint buckets for the whole process of emptying this place, 159 skipfuls. And they went up and down many, many times. I think at one point we had as many as 300 of these things on the go. They really worked hard before they finally cracked up and had to be thrown away. And we used nothing more than these paint buckets and shovels and occasionally pickaxes where the spoil was very compacted down. And we brought all sorts out of here. There was a lot of soil, but there were rocks and bricks and slates and God knows what else, and tons and tons of broken bottle glass and all sorts of things. So for the purpose of this demonstration to show what a single bucket goes through in a day, I took a brand new paint bucket that hadn't been used and I painted it red. And I don't know who, but somebody decided to paint a smiley face on it as well. This is only so it can be identified on its way around amongst all the other buckets. And this bucket is about to be hooked onto the rope and sent down with a gin wheel down into our mile-long tunnel, which lies right below Lynn's feet here. Now, I've got to apologize before we start. The quality of the photography is actually very, very poor. In those days, in 2015, I was using a very ordinary little compact camera, and it does not like dark spaces like we've got down below, and it certainly doesn't like movement. So in all of these photos below ground, everybody is blurred because they're all working, they're all on the move. I wasn't trying to capture nice pictures of people. I was trying to capture the process by which the buckets moved up and down and the spoil came up. So you'll have to excuse the quality of the photography, but it still shows what the process looked like. So Lynn's hooking this bucket on now. It's just about to go down through that drop hole that we used to bring everything up to the surface from. And it went into our skip here. And there it is arriving down below with Jerry Jones. He's unhooking it from the rope. And from there, as you can see, at another point during the day, there's a massive full buckets there waiting to go up with the rope. Very often, if we had enough people on site at the time, we would have all this down to a fine art. Ted behind there, I think, will be hauling on the rope, and Gavin in front of him will be hooking the buckets on. Makes it easier if there are two people doing it. And we had a system as well for taking the empty buckets down below. This is John Amy here. He's got a broom handle. Well, he's got a broom. You can see the handle sticking up there. He's holding the top of it. When we had as many as 15 to 20 people on site on a Sunday, which we quite often did, we very often get a group of people together whenever buckets needed to go down or buckets needed to go up. And we formed a daisy chain, passing the buckets up from level to level, as well as hoisting them up in 3 hoists. But the buckets would go down by being thrown from one person to another, all the way down. 1 set of stairs, 2 sets of stairs, 3 sets of stairs. when there weren't quite that many people, we would do it this way. John would be threading the handles of these buckets over the top of the broom until he came right up here, and he put on as many as he could actually handle. Bear in mind that once you fill this full of buckets and you start walking down the stairs, you can't see where you're going. So a little bit dodgy if you didn't know the ground in front of you. You could very easily slip by not being able to see the stair in front of you. Anyway, there's our red bucket, and John will be going off now from this level out of the mile-long tunnel, and then he's going down the staircase that leads past the entrance to level 2, just where he's standing, down the staircase down to level 3. And at the bottom of the steps here, it turns a corner round to the right there, and he's now onto our scaffolding staircase that leads down to the floor of level 3, because that staircase ends 7 feet above the floor for some reason. We've never explained it. So as you can see, he can't see where he's going at all. So it's quite dodgy, really. You don't know what you're doing. Now he's got to the bottom of that staircase. He's on the main floor of the level 3 chamber. This one he's in is the one we call the boot chamber. This had tons and tons of broken bottle glass in it. Terrible stuff to clear up. He's now going on down because the boot chamber and the Lomax chamber, which is the other one on level 3, have both been completely cleared. And we're now working on emptying the level 4 chambers. So he's reached the point where he's on the edge of the level 3 chamber there. And we've started excavating level 4. Gone down quite some distance, but there's still a long way to go. And we constructed this wooden flight of stairs, which runs across to a platform on the far side. And I think that was all that was needed at the time. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. We'll see in a minute. So he's going down this next set of steps there. And he's now on the floor as it is of level 4. But this is a long, long way from the bottom. Before we got to the bottom, we had to put in a second wooden staircase, flight of stairs coming down in this direction, down to another platform, and then finally a ladder to get right down to the bottom of level 4. So this is nowhere near completed. As I say, this is August 2015, and we didn't get this emptied completely until November of 2016. Now those buckets are going to be tipped off, and they'll just be lying around on the floor there waiting until they're needed. In this process of emptying these chambers one by one, we found that most of the time it never needed more than 2 people with a shovel in their hand. And very often it was just one person with a shovel in his hand as we got down here. And that one person, if you kept him well fed with empty buckets, could fill them at quite a rate. And then it took a whole army of people to get those buckets back up to the top, using 3 hoists and a lot of carrying in between from one hoist to another, and then finally up to the surface where they had to be emptied into the skip through a sieve. So this set of buckets is now waiting to be filled, with our red bucket sitting on the top there in the level 4 chamber. This blurry gentleman here is a man called Brendan, who joined us for a while as a digger. I think he was with us for a couple of years during the process of emptying the second half of the lower half of Paddington. And he was a man of very few words. You could never get a conversation out of him, but he's one hell of a digger. He could keep digging all day long, never seemed to suffer from a bad back or anything like that, just kept digging. And in fact, Brendan had been a grave digger, so he knew what he was doing. And it came as second nature to him. Now, behind Brendan is one of our 2 roller tables. That roller table is sloping slightly downhill that way to where our number 3 hoist is sitting. Can't see the rope in this particular shot. Excuse me. But he will be filling these buckets as somebody passes them to him, and then somebody else will be picking them up and putting them on the roller table, and they'll slide down to the end there, while somebody else is going to be hoisting them up to the next level. Here we go. I think the rope is here somewhere. And that is, I know that's Andy Phillips, but he's, again, very much a blur. He will be working on the rope. Brendan's still digging there. Our bucket's getting close to its turn to be filled. There you go. He's now filled our red bucket. And when it's gone onto the roller table with the rest, it'll be on its way. Now it's just about to be hauled up to the next level by Andy. And it reaches the top. At this point, Gavin has changed jobs. He was in the mile-long tunnel in one of the previous photos, but then we tended to move around quite a lot on these jobs. Nobody stayed on any one job for too long. It was nice to have a variety. So after a coffee break, everybody would swap around and do something different next time round. So here we are, got Gavin there unhooking buckets from the third hoist, and he's in the archway that connects between the level 3 Lomax chamber and the level 4 ash chamber, or coke chamber as we called it. This number 3 hoist became a very much longer haul by the time we got to the bottom. At the moment, it doesn't seem very long at all by comparison to what we know it became later. And here we are now in the Lomax chamber. Gavin has turned around and put that bucket onto the second roller table. Those buckets will roll gently down to the other end. And at this point, we've got 2 more people working here. This is Chris Sharples, who's on the rope, and Ronnie Challoner over there is reaching up to grab the hook as the rope comes down again, and he'll be hooking the buckets on. This job was so much easier if there were enough bodies so that you could have 2 people doing this job together, rather than one person hauling on the rope and having to grab the hook and hook on as well. We work really quite efficiently when there are enough people, but occasionally there weren't that many people on site and we had to struggle as best we could. So here we are. Our red bucket is getting close to its turn to go up again. Chris Sharples is holding on that bucket. This was a horrible position to work in because we ended up with quite a large puddle of water here sometimes, and the end of the rope would dangle in the water, and as you pulled on the rope you get spattered with water and mud. But it looks reasonably dry at this point. There we go. There's our red bucket going up, and that'll be going through a hole in the roof of this chamber, which is obviously a hole in the floor of the chamber above. And there we are. There's John Amy again. He's swapped jobs. He's standing unhooking buckets in the chamber that we call the tunnel to nowhere. The arch to nowhere is just off to the side there. So the buckets are coming up from the Lomax chamber on level 3 up to this point on level 2. And then as he unhooks them, John will be running across and piling them up over there. And it looks as if this is one of those days when we don't have a very large number of people. If we had more bodies, these buckets would be on the way permanently through to the next chamber. But on a day like this, when there aren't quite so many, John has been piling them up in that position and then running back to the hoist to catch the next bucket. And then when a batch of buckets is collected there, we'll probably pull a few people up from down below and say, everybody upstairs. We will form a daisy chain, and the buckets will go through from here. Chris Sharples again, there's Gavin again, Jerry Jones behind there, and in fact Brendan's there as well. He's been brought up, a chance to straighten his back for once after an awful lot of digging. So the buckets are being passed hand to hand through this level 2 chamber, and then up a couple of steps and into the mile-long tunnel again. And there we go. The mile-long tunnel looks like absolute chaos at this point. The buckets are collecting rather too much. Ted there and John Morrison will be on the rope this time. And these are the full buckets waiting to go up with the last hoist. And on this side, all the empties waiting to go down. It really looks as if we are struggling for numbers on this particular day. I don't remember counting, so I don't know how many we had at that point. But very soon, they wouldn't be able to walk in here, so everybody would have to be hauled up and start working on carrying those buckets down again. Because, of course, if you didn't keep getting the empty buckets back down to the bottom, the man with the shovel in his hand won't have anything to do, and it'll all come to a standstill, and we didn't like that. So I think our red bucket is about to come up through the drop hole. Then still there. There's our red bucket. It's the first time it's completed a circuit from top to bottom and up again with a load in it. She's unhooking now and passing it to John Morrison, who's going to tip it into the skip. Now this process, we would normally have a big sieve on the top of the skip, and 2 or 3 people at least would be spending their time sieving everything through this sieve. We made sure we didn't miss a thing. We had quite a fine mesh on it, and we picked out every little item that ended up in this skip that was any significance at all, that hadn't already been found by the diggers down below. In the poor light down below, it was very easy to miss things, especially small things. But we found coins, we found buttons, medals, we found all sorts of little things, pipes, as the material was sifted into the skip. And we salvaged everything that was important to keep. At the point we've reached here, we took liberties. Our skip hire company, CCC, were very good to us, and they allowed us to take serious liberties by putting greedy boards. We cut up these wooden boards and we fitted them round the top of every skip, 12 inches high, and we carried on filling until it was up to the top of the greedy boards, and then somebody would get up on top there and start stamping it down, and we would round it off quite nicely. But we always kept it safe, so they didn't mind. I reckon that in every 8-ton skip, we put about 12 tons of material. And as we emptied 159 skipfuls in the process of clearing out Paddington, I think I calculated that it was about 1,800 tons, which is a lot more than it would have been if we'd only put 8 tons in every skip. So we got our money's worth out. We did the best we could. But at this point where we've nearly filled the skip and we've had to put the greedy boards around, it's no longer possible really to have the sieve in place. So this last bit of the process involved people like John tipping each bucket in slowly and carefully and sprinkling the material around so that he could check by eye to see if there was anything there that needed to be salvaged. And I don't think we missed very much. We were pretty good at it. But I'm just going to throw in a few more photos that aren't from that day. But this is just to show you what it was like on any normal day that we were digging, Wednesdays and Sundays, with a good collection of people here. Here we've got Chris Jones, who was our top man, and I think that's Steve Moran there, and our Claire Moorhead, our treasurer and membership secretary. And they're sifting this stuff, pushing it through the sieve and looking for anything important that we don't want to miss. And in this one, you can see that it wasn't always quite that neat and tidy. This was from a very wet area in the boot chamber where we found tons of this broken bottle glass that had been dumped there. You may have heard me talk about a Mr. William Boot, a grocer, who occupied 3 of the Williamson buildings for many years. And he was bottling beers and lemonades and the like. And I think all the broken bottles from his process ended up in that chamber. It was horrible stuff to dig out. And it was a very, very wet, muddy corner. So this is not at all nice stuff to sift. You had to be careful not to cut yourself. We all had to wear good gloves. Very, very messy, but we still did it, and we sifted everything right from top to bottom. And there's our bucket. It's off and way down for a second run. And I think this must be at the end of the day. We're calling a halt at this point, and these are all the empty buckets, very neatly stacked up the side wall, all waiting to go down the next time we come in, the following Wednesday. Quite a collection of buckets. There'll be a lot more down below, and probably more off to the left, still waiting to go up. Oh, no, I don't think there are any waiting to go up. But it's quite a process, and we got very, very efficient at it, and we knew exactly what we were doing by the time we'd finished this, and it worked very, very well. And I don't think many people will find it easy to believe that we emptied the whole place out just using these plastic buckets. No mechanical aids at all, mostly with just shovels, but every now and then the pickaxe had to come in if the spoil was very compacted. But this is the end of the day, obviously. Not sure who's there with his back to us, but this is Don Hyam in the foreground, and the days when he was digging with us. He's our ace researcher. I've mentioned him many times because he's come up with so much good research information over the years. So that's Don. And that's just about all I've got to show you. That is the story of how we emptied the Paddington cellars just using plastic paint buckets. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that.